Hi everyone, this is Jess again. I'm excited to do this fourth class with you. So far, we've had a chance to explore creating those architectural forms. We've created some different things that we can add to our architectural forms, whether those are in a house that we've chosen or we've chosen some other kind of building. Today, I want to talk about creating different kinds of plants. I really love plants as a way to add some nature, and so we can create nature, whether that's outside of our little tiny houses or other buildings, or whether we want to add things like a little vase with flowers into our buildings. So let's get started. Let's take a look and let's see what we can build together. Okay, so I've got more of my mystery materials out again today. Again, I've got all sorts of things. I've got wire. I've got more of those papers that we were using, those papers from junk mail. Junk mail can be super great to create with. There's so many more things you can make with junk mail besides the things we've talked about. You could make insects with junk mail. You can make characters for your houses by cutting those things out or rolling those things. Up to you. Today, I'm going to explore making some plants out of those materials. Now, you might have other things near you that you want to try as well. You get to be creative with this. I might also choose to use some more pages from magazines as well. Up to you. You get to kind of figure it out. As you're thinking about these projects, you might want to make something like flowers in a vase or some plants in a pot. I think I'm going to come back to that idea that I had in our second class and try using something like a bottle cap to create a plant. I'm going to explore this as a little plant pot. So if I'm thinking about this as a little plant pot, I'm going to need some leaves. Now I could just cut those leaves out of here, but I think I might like to use a marker. I might like to explore that a little bit. Maybe I can create some sort of shape here. So maybe I'll just draw right on to that paper from the junk mail. And I might just start this out a little bit quickly. Maybe my plant needs to have a few different leaves. And I'm going to make a couple sort of plant shapes. And I'm going to remember that I'm cutting these out. So it's probably a good idea if they're a little bit simplified in their shapes, if they're a little bit, maybe I want it pointy. Let's see. Yeah, I like that pointy shape. I'll make 3 of those and then I'll cut them out. By making 3 of them, I give myself some more options. I think I might like to try making it a little bit feathery too. So we'll see if that works. We'll give that a try. Maybe you have something like a marker near you. Maybe you've got something else that could work as well for creating some color, creating some plants. Maybe you have a totally different idea again. I think that's great. So cutting these out, it's okay if it's not perfect. And if I mess up, that's all right. That's just part of the process of creating. No problem. Here's my idea. I'm wondering if, after I sort of cut these big shapes out, if I can create sort of a fern-like texture. Have you seen those ferns? They grow all over the place, but they kind of have a feathery texture. So let's see. I might try cutting with little tiny cuts that don't go all the way through. Yeah, we'll see if that works. Maybe you have a different idea, or maybe you like a different shape of leaf. That's okay. Maybe you're really interested in cactus. Maybe plants aren't that interesting to you or aren't something that you want to add to the building that you've been creating. Maybe you're more interested in creating a character, or maybe you're interested in creating a family, or maybe you're interested in creating some animals to go into your space. You're welcome to do that. There's so many things that you can do with natural materials too. So if you go on a little walk and you can find things like the tops of acorns or other nuts, or you can find little sticks, you can make all sorts of things. I know that you're really creative and your brain has been working through all of this, figuring out what to do with all these different materials. So I'm sure you'll come up with really interesting things to add to your building. And remember, if you add to one building and you decide you want to keep going and add to another one, that's okay. You don't have to stick to just one idea. All right, so I've kind of made that feathery texture. And maybe I'll kind of crinkle it up a little bit. Leaves aren't perfect, they're a little bit crinkled. I kind of like the way that looks. Now, maybe I want to color on the other side too. Or maybe not. I can kind of fold that up. It's starting to look more like a plant, huh? I'm going to try to cut this other one out. Give that a try as well. Here we go. Again, I like to cut out sort of the big shape and then kind of add those details or those little spots later. I've got lots of things that I could use for the dirt in my planter that I'm building too. I could use things like cardboard or bits of crumpled up paper. I could use a little bit of actual dirt. It's not very much dirt. I've also got some little pieces of scrap leather here. That kind of looks a little bit like dirt to me as well. I could also come back to those tubes that I was exploring in our second class as well. And again, I think I'm going to try that feathery technique. Little cuts, little cuts. If you're trying this out and you cut through all the way, that's okay. No big deal. Just make another one. Or you might decide you like that look. You might decide you like when it's a little bit uneven. Plants aren't exactly perfect and exactly symmetrical. People aren't exactly perfect and exactly symmetrical either. And that's okay. If you've decided you want to build something like an animal, you can also do that. Maybe you have some little clay near you. Maybe you've got something like Fimo or Sculpey or Play-Doh. You want to build out of that. Maybe you've got some little Legos that you might like to use in your house. You can totally do that as well. You could build furniture out of Legos. You could build plants out of Legos. But even if you don't have those things, there's still so many things you can do. So many options. Your creativity will decide what you can do. I'm crinkling this up again because I like that sort of feathery texture. I like when things aren't perfect. I think it looks a little bit more like nature that way too. I'm going to fold these around again. Now I've left these connected so that it's easier to have them not fall apart. But you can decide what works for you. You can decide what you like. So I've got a white side and a green side right now, but I might also decide that I really want both sides to be green if I'm going to see both sides. So I can color that in too. Coloring it in. You might take some more time. I'm going a little bit quickly. And it's okay too. If I've got some little white spots, I don't actually mind that. Some plants have that too, that variegation, that different even coat of color. Some plants have speckles, some plants have stripes, all sorts of different things. If you've got things like crayons, that could work for this kind of a process too. Or colored pencils, whatever you've got works. Maybe you can find some magazines and that works better for you. Maybe just cutting out some plants from magazines might be something that you're more interested in. That's up to you. But by doing those little cuts and that folding, you can create a lot of different effects. Lots of different options. All right, I kind of like the way that's a little bit feathery. I'm going to add it to that other one too. We're going to squish them around. A little bit gentle, but not too worried. And I'm kind of pinching them. Can you see how I'm pinching them at the bottom? That's making those little leaves kind of stick together. Now I might decide to use a little bit of tape too. That tape might help it hold together. Little goes a long way, whether you're using the glue or tape or whatever other materials you have. Maybe you've got something like pipe cleaners. Maybe you're just folding your paper around. That's okay too. Folding around, making those little plants. I'm going to make mine a little bit messier because I kind of like the way that looks. Now I could use something like those tubes. I could experiment. I could say, what does that look like? Oh, that could be sort of the beginning of a tree or something. I could add some more leaves and make it more tree-like if I wanted to. But I think I'm going to stick to my idea about this being a plant pot. Can you see how that's kind of showing up there a little bit? Yeah, I like the way that looks. So let's see. Now I need to make some dirt. So again, I was showing you that I had those little scraps. I could do this again with something like a brown paper. That would be a-okay. I'm going to go ahead and trace it. Now I'm going to try with my pencil. But again, some materials pencils work on and some don't. So you're just going to have to experiment and see what works using the materials you've got and what doesn't work. Both are okay. All right, cutting around. This works really well with like the paper bags that sometimes groceries come in. That's one really good way. Or cardboard. Sometimes the inside of the cardboard from little boxes, like cereal boxes, like that cereal box that we were working with last time. That could be another great thing to create some dirt with. I'm going to make this the tiniest bit smaller so it'll fit inside. Tiniest bit smaller. Little by little. All right, that's kind of looking more like a plant pot. I'm also going to try to make a little hole in this. Now this part might be tricky. We'll see if this works. If this doesn't work, I can try something else. So I folded it in half there to see if I could get a little hole through. It worked. So I can push that through there. If you're doing something like this, just make sure you're being really careful with your scissors. Take your time. Try to make that hole a little bit bigger so it fits. I left my little edge of tape on there because I thought that would make it easier to pull through. I kind of like the way that looks. What do you think? Looking a little bit like a plant? And when I'm ready, I might just push that in there. Maybe I'm worried that it'll fall through, so I could use little scraps of other material inside too, just to kind of hold it in place. Kind of like how when there's a pot that has plants in real life, it might have little bits of dirt. Maybe I could crumple up paper. That would be another way to keep the things where I want them to be. Try it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. As always, make sure you're being kind to yourself as you're creating your pieces. And if you're creating with other people, remember to be kind to them too. We can always experiment. We can always try new things to see what works for us. All right, we got a little bit of a plant there. So I could add that plant to my house if I wanted to. I could add it to the outside. I could add it to the inside. If this pops out somewhere, I could decide that maybe I need to add some more glue to it. I could spread these leaves out too if they're close together. I could add something like a little flower in there too if that's something that I wanted to try. Many possibilities. I might try creating another little plant out of some paper here. Let's see what we can create. I might try the same thing where I draw out some shapes here. What kind of shapes? Maybe I want a really tall plant. So I can make some tall leaf shapes. Maybe you want to make a cactus and you can think of the shapes that a cactus has. Again, I like to leave those shapes kind of combined. So it almost looks like a dinosaur foot to me as I'm looking at that. If scissors aren't something that are easy for you to use, practicing is great, but you can also sort of tear. You can try tearing it. You'll get a softer line. You see how that's kind of a softer line, a softer edge there? Yeah, maybe I like the sharper edge, so I'll use, again, those scissors. But you can do some experiments to see what works best for you. You can think about how when we were looking at our buildings last time, we were able to add all those things onto the building and think about whether we wanted to add other things on it too. Things like whether we needed to add some different rooms. So you can think about those things too. And think about where you might like to add things like these plants. I'm going to just roll this one around. This reminds me of, there's some succulents, some of those succulent plants that don't mind if you don't water them too often. And there's some that have this sort of long shape. It kind of reminds me of this shape that I've kind of built here. I don't mind that this has writing on the other side. You could color this or you could change it if that's something that you don't like. But I don't mind when we can kind of tell that something is made out of other things. I think that's kind of beautiful. Another material you might have near you is something like a toilet paper tube or a cardboard tube from something else, maybe paper towels or something. But you could use this too to create some plants. You could create this as something like a tree trunk or a really tall planter. I don't know, up to you. Maybe you need to make some columns in your building, and that could be a solution for that. Again, you're the artist. I'm going to tape that one as well, just like I did with my other little plant. Just because I like it to not move around so much. I like it to not unravel. It helps me think about how I want to work with it. Again, if I've got little tubes, I can just try putting things together. Do I like the way it looks with that? Maybe not for me. Maybe you have a different idea. That's okay. Maybe I'll move these around a little bit so it feels more organic, more like nature to me. I can fold them. I can crease them. If it turns out in a way that I don't like, I can just do it again. No big deal. Find some other materials that work for me. And that's okay. How might I like to do this one? Well, I have another one of these caps that kind of looked similar. Or it might even be the same kind of cap as that first one. So maybe I'll just make another plant in sort of the same way. Something like that might be interesting. It's great to use these little recycled materials because it's really helpful for our planet too. There's so many new things that you can use, and that's great too. But if you've got the opportunity and the ability to work with recycled materials or materials that would have been garbage, it's a really great way to kind of be kind to the earth that we live on. Right? You can create all sorts of different things. It's also really nice because you can make art anywhere and out of anything. And that's a really special thing to be able to do. Art is everywhere. Art can be made out of anything. And if you can think creatively about it and you can imagine new ideas, you'll never be without art. You can always find ways to spend your time. Let's see, with this one, I'll try leaving the rough side instead of the smooth side. Sometimes if you check both sides of things, you'll discover that each side looks different. That's true of our junk mail, and that's true of many other things too. So again, if I'm doing something like this kind of cut, I want to make sure that I'm being really careful, really thoughtful, moving my body nice and slow, being aware of where my fingers are. The harder the material, the harder it is to cut. So the more we need to really make sure that we are being careful. So again, I want to just figure out how these things fit together. Maybe I'm just taping it. Maybe I'm just gluing it up like this. I like that sort of make a hole and push it through strategy. But do what works for you. If the cutting part is hard for you, try gluing it. Or try cutting all the pieces out of paper. Paper is easier to cut than some of these other things. Some of these things are a little tricky. And again, that's okay. Also, sometimes if I have holes that I'm trying to make, I can use something like a pencil too and kind of push through. That works with paper too. But again, be really kind and gentle. Really careful. Really careful. All right, I'm kind of liking the way that plant's looking. Here we go. So I can check it out. Is that going to fit? Pretty close. Pretty close. Again, I might decide I want to add some things on the inside. I can crumple up some paper or use some little scraps just so that it doesn't squish all the way down. But up to you. Do what works for you, even if that's a different thing than what works for me. You know yourself better, so you know what's going to be good for you. You check it out. All right. Going gently. If you're using something like a metal bottle cap like this, be really careful because those edges can be a little sharper. It's usually safer if you're using something like these plastic ones, but just go really carefully. Again, do what makes sense for your space and with the grown-ups that are near you and what works for them too. So look at that. I like that that's kind of uneven. That reminds me even more of the way that plants look. So you can think of all sorts of different plants to add, all sorts of different things that you can do. I'm going to add these to that room that I was creating, and I might even make some more. I might make some flowers. I might make some bushes or fruit trees. If I've got something like a clay, I could make some different shapes of fruits as well. Up to you. Beads are really great for that too. You could take a bead, stick a tiny bit of wire in the top, and then you've got an apple or a pear or some other kind of fruit. Just get creative. Get creative, explore, see what you can figure out, and keep on building. It's been really fun to work through these with you, and I hope that you continue to be creative. I hope that you find ways to make art wherever you are, knowing that you can make art from anything, even junk mail. Take care. Bye-bye.